attracted my ideal customer right in my inbox, getting in their feelings literally. I did 5-figure contracts when I offered my done for you Amazon service when I did it. Still use this method to this day to get people in my workshops, retreats, and my coaching, and it works. Gripping their hearts and attracting people who are ready to change their life. Some of the comments that I've gotten just on my post by doing this method through emotional selling. My name is Nickia, sold 7 figures in product sales and now help other people to do the same. I'm about to give you the piece of the pie, the cherry to the cream of how I did this in a nutshell. Started sharing my thoughts and sharing things that people thought in their minds but never said out loud. I started being way more vulnerable and sharing real things about me, real things that I went through. Of course, as long as I was comfortable with it. I'm not saying to share things that you ain't comfortable with. You share the things that you're comfortable with, and it will usually relate to people. It will grip them. So here's what emotional selling is. It's a way to connect to people on the way they feel and how they relate to you. That's that moment where they feel like, oh shoot, she's speaking to me. She gets me. And I guarantee that they're gonna reach out to you for your product or service, or some may not even know what you sell because they want that result that you have. That's how it works, folks. If people don't feel connected to you, they're not going to contact you because you're not getting them at their core. You're not getting them with their emotion. If you're always surface level, you're always gonna get surface level results. Let's show some examples, yo. So this was a video I did. This video was specifically about, are you using bills as an excuse to stop you from getting your dreams? Because a lot of people always say, oh, like, I need to look at my budget. But the reality is that is your budget gonna get better if you're always living paycheck to paycheck? And it gets to a point where you need to think beyond that and be like, okay, what do I need to sacrifice now so I can make more money than I am right now, so then I can then get out of this rat race of like trying to like cringe numbers. I spoke about this from the heart. Like, look at these comments. People are like, oh, you have so much wisdom to share. They're like, absolutely. Bills and I think like people relate so much. I felt this so much. Like, people are saying these like deep comments. And this was one of the videos that actually converted, right? It actually converted. It converted from my workshop. It had people inquiring about my workshops. I knew that it gripped them, and because it gripped them, note this, like, this wasn't an analytical type live. I wasn't like, okay, buy my thing. This is what you get. Nope. I gripped them at the heart, and so their emotions were like, oh my dang, she gets me, right? And then people feel the urge to reach out or comment, and that's what you want to get from people. You want to connect with them in that way. This video was an example of saying things that people think in their minds, but don't say it out loud. Let's go, let's do this. So the next example was a emotional post. And this was a post specifically talking about how I went to the beach and the emotional and vulnerable aspect of going to the beach and the struggles I had with, oh my God, maybe I should just stay home and not go because I don't have anyone to go with. And then I shared that transformation of what happened when I went and how happy I was. And let me tell you, it was the highest liked comment post for that day, and it got so much likes and comments of people relating, and people related to it so much because this is something that people go through. To be clear, is that this post was made specifically to bridge other posts that I do consistently. So this made people feel like, oh, I actually relate to Nickia, like she gets me. And you see, when I make more posts and more posts, it will just start to build up. That's usually how these emotional type posts work. So it may not convert right then and there, but it builds up for the other posts that you're gonna be doing, because now people are paying attention. People are looking out for your posts. That's how it works. Every post or live video that you do contributes to someone feeling more and more like you emotionally get them. This also contributes to that person that's watching you to eventually convert. You are speaking to their soul, and the reality is not a lot of people are doing that. People can see through your how real you are, by the way. People could see when you genuinely want to just help people. I've had people just come to me and be like, you know, you really seem genuine, like you really want to help me grow my store. Like you don't really, like you're not just looking to have to get my money. It's amazing when people tell me that, because I'm like, well, that's how you should be. You should be a genuine human being wanting to really help the collective who wants to help themselves. And that's the type of emotion you're gonna get from people. And when people feel like you genuinely care, they're gonna be in your court. And so this next post was more of a vulnerable post. Not in a like cry type of way, but it was a post where people would understand, people would relate to. And so you'll see this post like, yeah, there's a picture of a pool, we're all having fun, it's showing that, oh hey, I'm happy. But this post, I really went into sharing how I felt before with money and how I was struggling and all this stuff and what went on. And then I share how I overcame it. Like what I did to make that change. I want to share a transformational moment that people will understand. So I share where I was with the money, like how it was, you know, like where it took me, the dark place it took me. And then I share what I did to make that change. Like what changed? Where am I now with money and how I think of it? And then I end it with reminding them that, hey, you can do this too. You don't have to be in that same situation type thing. That was the overall structure I took with this mini post. And think about this too. It hits on what people are thinking, but they're not really saying, right? Because people go through this every day. This was nothing new, right? But the post really did well because this is something that people go through all the time, every day. And we sometimes don't talk about it because like we can feel ashamed or whatever it may be. And so I talk about it and say, hey, like, you know, I used to be pinching and diming, trying to figure this out, being all stressed out, till eventually I changed my story, right? And it relates to so many people. I actually ended up getting a message after putting that post on top of the comments. I actually got a direct message of someone saying, hey, like, I'm just ready to change my life. Like, I want to get into this. I want to be clear that every one of your guys' goals will be different with the impact that people get from you. But my goal is to make people realize like, hey, like it's time to change your life if you're in that place where you feel like it's not going well and you feel stuck, because I was there. I get it. What would it feel like for you if you got people messaging you because of your content, because of the conditioning you're doing in your content, and they're like, oh dang, I need to change my life, girl? What would that feel like? And that's the goal of your content, is you want to pull those emotional strings and basically help them to wake up. Because sometimes we get stuck in this routine where we don't realize that it's time to change. We don't realize that we can actually change. We don't have enough motivation to get us to where we need to go. What if you can do that and you had people, you woke up and you had people say, oh man, you're so inspiring. I just want to change my life. How, like, what would that feel like for you? And how would that feel like if that is something that converted for you? What you're really doing when it comes to emotional selling is you're reminding them of the life they can create. You're reminding them of their dreams. You're reminding them of the change and the impact they can create in their own life. Believe me, it works. They will come to you. If you're genuine and you're sharing real life about yourself, you're not talking down on them, but you're sharing real things about you, they will come to you. Here's a clear breakdown of that post. The breakdown is a thought that I used to have before, or a struggle, and what you did to solve that problem, and where they could be right now, or what it could do for them if they solve that said problem, depending on your ideal customer. And this is for product-based businesses too, don't get it wrong. People still buy from emotions when they're selling products. I've done this and used to get people asking me, can I get your store? And didn't even know what I was selling because I sold on Amazon, right? Another post example. So this post is a staple story that I use. And I suggest that if you want to get into emotional selling, that you create a staple story, you know, like whatever your overcomer story is, basically that's what that is, and create different versions of it. Tell it in different ways. And so this post was an example of me taking my staple story and basically reframing it for this specific post. It was a strong focus on where I was before and where I am now, and things that I have realized. So this is a strong example of talking about where I was before and what I have become. I really speak to the soul of reminding them of something that relates to them, that will be like, yes, that's me too. Like, I want that. So I gave you 2 different breakdowns to help you craft posts that are emotional, that people will feel related and connected to you. I want to take it a step further and help you a little bit more and help you brainstorm so you can start creating emotional stories right now that will grip people's hearts, that will start converting, especially for a product-based type business. This could work for a service-based business, but especially for this type of business. This is idea number 1. Share a day where you had a down day and what did you learn about it. Craft this emotional post based on a moment where you had a bad day and you were able to overcome it. And so we're gonna use the second method of sharing the before and what you have become. Before, I failed at workshops 5 times, yo. It was heartbreaking, and it was to the point where I would start playing like love songs, like sad love songs, as if I just had a breakup, and I would just cry because I felt like it was directly connected with me, that I was a failure, I wasn't enough, and that people that weren't buying my workshop, it meant that there was something wrong with me. This is just a side note. So you want to really explain this part, especially the before, and you really want to go into detail about how you felt, what happened, what was that moment, because you're gonna attract people who have went through the same thing. It doesn't have to do with anything with the workshop. It doesn't matter. But people will relate to that feeling of a moment that they felt that same way. So let's continue. How I overcame this. So I overcame this by I realized that it didn't define me. It didn't mean that I was a failure or I wasn't successful because I wasn't converting as much as I wanted to. It was not less than. Once I realized this, I got right back up and did more workshops. It did not stop me. And it came to the point where I started converting and I no longer had those feelings again. But it wouldn't have happened if I stopped and failed and just said, hey, like, oh, well, I guess that's it. Like, we're not getting anywhere, right? But I refuse to throw away the towel. That's a side note. So I'm bringing them through that journey of like how I went from being so distraught and how I came to a point where I was like, okay, well, it's time to do it again because I'm not giving up. Right? Because the goal is to get a conversion. Next step would be to remind them of something. Just a reminder to remind you that just because you fail once doesn't mean that you can't get back up. It doesn't mean it doesn't determine who you are. It just means that you need a little bit more practice and get back up and keep on doing it until you figure it out. And when you know who you are, it's easier to get back up. When you don't know who you are and you're making your results define who you are, that's when it gets hard. This is a reminder that a lot of people don't figure that out. A lot of people stay in that spot of, oh, I'm a failure, and never really get out of that moment. You use those points and then you craft it in a story, right? You put the points together and just make it into a nice little post and put it out there. And I bet you people will relate to it. Other ideas can be milestones that you've had in life. You know, what that big moment was when you transitioned from another job to a new job. That moment when you decided that business was for you, if that's your journey, or you decided that product-based business was for you, or moments that you had where you were feeling sad or you weren't feeling motivated, how you overcame it. We could keep on going with ideas, but these are places to start. They're usually moments that you have in your life, in your everyday life. Because sometimes we take it for granted. We don't realize that what's going on in your everyday life, because we're so used to it, is the actual stories that people relate to because they go through it every day too.